冇聲啊，有啦，各位委員大家好。
Good afternoon, members. We have already formed a quorum. It is also time to start the meeting. So I call the meeting to order. This is the 18th meeting of the Bills Committee on Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013. We carry on with our meeting with the administration. Therefore, meanwhile, please invite the administration's team to join us. We have received the CSAs from the administration. So let's deal with the outstanding matter, and then we'll deal with the CSAs from members. I declare my interest. I own properties. I'm an accountant. My employer provides all sorts of tax advice services to our clients. I myself do not provide any tax-related service to our clients. Abraham Shah. I just repeat my declarations done in the past. I just want to withdraw my CSA in relation to Section 18. I'm having another meeting next door, and that's in relation to the acquisition and disposal of existing and future properties. I've already written in. All right. Mr. Sheik's view is noted. So you formally propose that you will write formally to us in relation to the CSAs that you have proposed in the past. You would like to withdraw it, and that's in relation to Clause 18. Not too long ago, we've also received a letter from Mr. Chair Wai-chuen, dated the 28th of May. In his letter, he indicated that as the administration has already relaxed the time limit for acquisition before disposal, and so he's now withdrawing his CSA. Let's continue with the CSAs from the administration. Mr. Leung, declaration of interest. I own properties, and I'm also engaged in tax advice. Mr. Chair, I just want to repeat my previous declaration of interests. Thank you for informing the other members that I've already written in to withdraw my earlier proposed CSA. So the seventh item, last time we stopped at item 6. Please remind members of the contents as well as the background. Thank you. Last time we were talking about the technical amendments. So please take a look of item 7 of the table. Recently, in the light of our adjustments, and there are two, and that's in relation to the negative vetting arrangement. We also propose to take it out, and therefore we have already updated you with the latest version of our CSAs that was done on Friday. So can we not sort of adopt that version? And then there's paper 1545/13-14 So we have got the final version of our CSAs. So let me go through the amendments. Item 7. In relation to the buyer's stamp duty, in relation to the reference to the mortgagee, in relation to Section 29AM(1)(c), that is page 619 of the mocked-up copy attached, we would like to amend the drafting so that we are aligned with the 2014 Amendment Ordinance. It's a textual amendment. So we are sort of making the same revision as that done to the 2014 Amendment Ordinance. Page 19, please. No other comments? Then we move on. Item 8, again a technical amendment. That's in relation to Head 1, 1C of the first schedule, and there's a cross-reference there to the buyer's stamp duty. Last time when we were at clause 14, we invited members to note the following. That is for section 29C5ABC, that is page 34 of the attached copy. We mentioned about the case of the next of kin, close relatives. So we need to make a cross-reference to head 11C of the first schedule concerning BSD. This was already mentioned during the cross-by-cross scrutiny. So page 34. Page 34. If there aren't other comments, then please continue. Legal advisor. Well, last time we've already invited our legal advisor to check whether the two versions are fine and whether the drafting is okay. So please alert us should there be a problem. Item 9, and that is to delete the same definition of closely related persons in sections 29CB 13 and 29DB 15 of the 2014 Amendment Ordinance. So we just want to remove the duplicated references. So please refer to pages 35 and 38 of the attached copy. Please continue. Item 10, and this in relation to the conveyances on sale and agreements for sale involving the same immovable property. Page 38. We'd like to add a cross-reference to head 1(1)AA(B) of the first schedule concerning BSD. We'd like to add a reference to make sure that we know under what circumstances close relatives will be regarded as the same person. So it is a cross-reference. Page 38, please. Please continue. Item 11 then. On page 38, 17A. This is to delete the same definitions of transferee and transferor in sections 29DB 16 and 17 of the 2014 Amendment Ordinance. This is because in section 29, we have already provided the definitions of transferee and transferor, so we can take this out here. We have you provided it, 29A bracket 1. All right, please continue. Item 12. And that's in relation to the partial refund in the case of redevelopment. Under the arrangements of 2014 Amendment Ordinance, for pages 38 and 41, we would like to add some conditions for the refund application in the case of redevelopment. When we carried out the cross-by-cross scrutiny, we mentioned that in the case of redevelopment, we would like to follow the wording adopted in the case of the BSD. So pages 38 to up to 41. No questions, we move on. Item 13, and you find it on page 51. Section 71, bracket 2, transitional provisions. In the light of the 2014 Amendment Ordinance, in relation to AVD and BSD, we have got two separate references. Here we would like to align them so that in relation to AVD and BSD, we have got a time limit for overdue payment. So we would like to make corresponding changes. You'll find it on page 51. Yes, please continue. Next, page 56, Schedule 1. We want to amend the provisions listed against the headings of the first schedule. We propose to add the relevant provisions in this bill, including those mentioned on page 56. under 24 bracket 1, we have got a number of references. We have added 29AB, and then after 29DC, we have also added the references to the other 4 provisions. So it's a matter of referencing. Yes, please continue. And then page 3 of our table, item 15, page 1. Again, it is a reference in Schedule 1 in relation to the Inland Revenue and Stamp Duty Legislation Alternative Bond Schemes Amendment Ordinance 2013. We want to say that Section 71 to be added by way of clause 24 bracket 1. It will come into effect on the 19th of July 2013 in relation to Section 47 bracket G. Please continue. Item 16. You'll find it on pages 12 and 10. And that's in relation to the involvement of more than one agreement for sale involving the same immovable property. Currently, we say that the reference to subsection 4 is in fact related to the transferee, and we would like to have the date of acquisition. And should there be more than one agreement, we're referring to the first agreement. So earlier on, we have missed out subsection 4, the reference to subsection 4. So pages 10 and 12.
Next, item 17, and this is on page 22, 33, 33. When we submitted to CSA, we had discussed with the legal advisor regarding the the reference to ga koi in the Chinese text. 22, 23, 33, 32, and 33. Please go on. Item 18. This is about the refund of stamp duty in the case of redevelopment. And for this section, we are now proposing to add a new division 4A, and we've rearranged the sequence. And you may find this on page 38. It doesn't affect the provision. It's just a matter of reordering. Please continue. Item 19. This is section 29DG, where which is about the further AVD payable on failure to complete disposal of residential property in certain circumstances. We make cross-reference to section 49, but that is not appropriate, and therefore we should actually cite 29C bracket 5B instead of section 49. That is the conditions under which the stamp duty will be refunded, and this is the details are on page 50. Please go on. Item 20, and this is section 29DH bracket 3 bracket B and bracket 5B, pages 52 and 53, and that is the liability for underpayment of AVD in certain circumstances. And we've taken aboard the advice of the legal advisor and replaced the references to 均可被起訴 in the Chinese text with 有關法律程序可針對各承讓人提出 for the sake of enhancing clarity. Please continue. Item 21. And this is head 1, bracket 1C of the first schedule. And Note 3 is about closely related persons. Previously, we used the old version, including parents, spouses, siblings, and children. We are now using the replacing that with closely related persons. Details are on page 55, where you find bracket 1. The provision there is the same as Note 3 under 1B. Item 22, again a consequential amendment to amend Section 41 in Schedule 3, and that's page 67 of the amended CSA, to spell out clearly that the agreements for sale in respect of non-residential property made before February 23rd, 2013 will not be affected by the changes made in the bill. Details are on page 67. Please continue. Next, we come to section item 29, which is amendments to notes to head 1 bracket 1 and 1 bracket 1A of the first schedule. All these technical amendments are in respect of leases, and according to Schedule 1 at the moment, even if we will charge according to the rents, but if the consideration is a lump sum payment, or if it involves the transfer of the lease, and if the consideration is not sufficient, and we may need to invoke the we will amend the note to stipulate that the old tax rate, the old rate would apply in the light of the Law Society's inquiry on cases concerning leases. And these details are on page 60 and 64. Is it related to the latest document that you've submitted? Yes. No, not. I don't think so. This is the view of the Law Society raised at the last meeting. Could you explain that a bit further? In response to the submission from the Law Society, in January 2014, the Law Society wrote to the administration making inquiries concerning leases, and they say that that the stamp duty be to the charge according to scale 1. But we believe that these are leases and not a transfer of the title to the property, and that's why we made the clarification here. That is, we will charge the old AVD. Item 24. Again, during the clause-by-clause scrutiny of the bill, when we dealt with the exchange for between residential property and non-residential property, and we now stipulate that the exemption would only the scope of the exemption to the effect that the exemption covered only the equality money paid by the transferee for the residential property, but not paid for in exchange of a non-residential property. And when we scrutinize 29AN and 29BF, this was already discussed. Mr. James To. I'd like to ask the legal advisor whether or not our legal advisor consider this to be acceptable. I think the present amendment can satisfy the policy objective. All right, then please go on. Next, item 25, and this is to amend section 63B, amendment of the first schedule, to delete the relevant provision in respect of the adjustment to the rates and the monetary amount of AVD by way of negative vetting. And this is stipulated on page 54. So we're finished with the proposed amendments. What about the CSA for the exchange of properties? That is, buy first and sell later provision. And this is on page 46 to 48 of the final CSA. That is 29DF. It's all covered here. 29DF. In respect of car parks, AJA is on page 15. Permanent Secretary, what about the amendment? By 29DF, page 46 to 48, that is, buy now and sell later. Have we discussed the relevant paper at the last meeting? Yeah, this was discussed at the last meeting. Could you give us the reference number for the document? 29DF. Mr. James To. I think we finalized that this morning. It will be provided for in the formal CSA. I've talked to the legal advisor that this format at the moment is make it easier for members to make reference. Since we have several documents, I don't know where this is placed, because last time we've scrutinized that part before we look at the technical amendments. But anyway. Which paper 1468, 29DF and 29AJA, 11468. Oh, okay, I found that paper. Legal advisor. Madam Chair, table today. That's the paper 1545, the marked up copy already includes the amendment, except that we've not raised this for discussion today because it was already discussed at the last meeting. 1545 bracket 3 has already included all the final CSAs proposed by the administration. Oh, okay, then legal advisor, could you, take this up with the administration. Last time, what about the issue related to car parks? We'll deal with that later on. So we may now go back to the items which we requested for clarification at the last meeting. So this is the clarification to the issues raised by members at the last meeting. On May the 27th, we submitted a paper reporting to members that since after we introduced the new stamp duty on May 23rd and up to March, the total number of TPS transactions number 4,000 out of, well, depending on the number, the circumstances, we will determine which of those transactions would need to pay double stamp duties. Regarding car parks, I think members requested a clarification regarding this point, and in this paper, actually pursuant to members' inquiry, we've liaised with the Buildings Department and the DFJ, and we had a meeting to consider this point further, and the paper now has stated our position. That is under 29 AJA, that is the definition of car parks. We have actually adopted the existing definition for car parks, and also the definition of car parks in land deeds. Normally, we would look at the documents relating to the transaction. Normally, whether it's residential or non-residential premises, we'll look at the permitted use for the car park. We will not look further into the actual use of the car park. So in dealing with which document, they will look at the conveyance agreement and the relevant documents. And if there are clear documents indicating that the boundary and the plan for the car park, so that it can satisfy the requirement for exemption, namely the car park is used to park one car, then the car park will be exempted from the stamp duty. Members also raised a question regarding the DMC at the last meeting. We understand the DMC will involve multi-story buildings and the definition of titles amongst the owners. We've taken a look at some sample DMCs. Most DMCs will stipulate that that car parks are intended for the parking of vehicles. Sometimes they will even further stipulate that the car park will be used for the parking of a single vehicle. Mr. James To suggested that some car owners may actually, under some circumstances, park two vehicles on a single car park. Well, that involves the actual use of the car park. If the document clearly stipulates that the car park is meant for the parking of a single vehicle, then the ILD will provide for the exemption. But of course, there may be exception circumstances where the DMC clearly stipulates that the particular car parking space is intended for parking more than one vehicle, because we don't know how large the car park is. If more than one vehicle is parked on that car park, then we will, pursuant to the provision, will not provide exemption for such car parks. We've considered our policy and also the documents that we've looked at, and the lease and the DMCs. We hope that we have clearly, stated our position here. But actually, it will eventually depend on the text of the actual document before we could make a final judgment. Mr. James To.
I only agree with the very last sentence of the paper. If you turn to paragraph 5, it is said that the standing practice is to consider the permitted use rather than the actual use. So your focus is on the permission. So I just wonder whether the following can be done. Now, maybe the DMC permits that there are 50 car parking spaces and 104 units. So that's the approved arrangements. Well, if it is one of the 54, then it would be one of those permitted. If you ask me for 1A of 29 AJA, then you don't need to talk about intended for the parking of one motor vehicle. Probably it is approved for the parking of one permitted or one motor vehicle. Then you can avoid mentioning the DMC, because that's being permitted under the OP given by the Buildings Department. So it is up to the owners to deal with it in any way or to park any number of vehicles. I don't know whether future cars will develop in such a way that more can be parked on the same space. So you can simply make a change approved for would suffice. That is, you just refer to the occupation permit of the BD, then it can avoid controversies. We understand Mr. To's point. Maybe Mr. Lai, our legal advisor, can advise. Mr. Lai, thank you, members. Thank you, Mr. To, for your suggestion. We did consider whether the word approve is an appropriate choice. We gave consideration to it, but then we have to mention by whom, and we need to name the authority when it comes to title, leases, etc. There may be different approving authorities. Therefore, under such a case, had we used approved, we would have introduced even more uncertainties. Therefore, the way as it is being drafted is about right. But intended, whose intention? I think we can borrow the same argument. So whose intention? Intended by the government or intended by that person? Whose intention? Would like to give an answer? Yes, please continue. Well, intended is a common phrase. We have also looked at certain case laws. So intended means a reasonable person take a look of this car parking space and he'll come to the conclusion as to how many vehicles will be parked there. So we say that the space is for the parking of one motor vehicle. If you want it, we can supplement the authorities that I've looked up. Well, we are talking about a transaction. If it fits the criteria, then it is fine. Now, if it is approved, then you have something to rely upon. Intended, you haven't got anything. So if you want to enforce the Inland Revenue Ordinance, if you use the word approved, that's better. Say approved by the relevant authority. But then if you use the term intended, whose intention? Who intended by whom? It will be difficult to be sure about the case, and you will suffer from the lack of certainty. Yes, we note Mr. To's point. In relation to this particular word, allow me to go back to check it up. I hope members can note our position. We understand that we have to be careful. I want to be given time to revisit this one together with the DFJ. Yes, please supplement with a paper. All right, I think that should be it for this paper if there aren't other questions. Next, prior to the meeting, we have received from Mr. Kenneth Leung his latest CSA so as to replace the one he submitted earlier on. His paper bracket 02. The administration has also given a response. So, Mr. Leung, please briefly walk us through your CSA. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is based on what members have suggested last time. I think they're good suggestions. Let me introduce what has been revised. For the paid first and refunded later, I think that's the spirit. And we're talking about commercial properties. In the definition, on 2 occasions, I would like to make a change. First of all, the definition for business.
Or trust of a public character, which has been exempt from tax under Section 88 of the Inland Revenue Ordinance. 咁我係即係明確地講埋咧，業務包括咗呢啲慈善業務。咁類似地啦。
Similarly, for the definition of trade, again I have made reference to Section 88 of the IRO and those that have been exempted under such a section. I hope members can then avoid the need to move another CSA. There's also one other revision, and that's in relation to 3B of Section 29DI. I talked about certain anti-avoidance measures so as to facilitate the operation of the IRD when it comes to law enforcement, I'm now saying that the property should be used solely for the purpose of carrying on the applicant's trade, profession or business in Hong Kong for not less than 3 years rather than 2 years, so that for those who are genuinely interested in investing in Hong Kong, they will be given a refund under the AVD mechanism. Administration, please comment on the further amendment proposed by Mr. Leung to his CSA. We have already submitted our written reply. Let us repeat once again. For the CSA, as Mr. Leung has mentioned, the CSA has a difference when compared with the previous one, in that instead of 2 years, it is now 3 years. And then for the use, charitable purposes will also be included. So let us repeat our position. Now we're talking about a refund arrangement. For the refund arrangement, the nature itself vis-a-vis exempting Hong Kong registered companies and Hong Kong permanent residents, including charitable institutions acquiring a property. I think the same sort of consideration for exemption should apply. So as far as our policies are concerned, and in fact we find the CSA departing from our policy intention of having a demand management effect. And then for our latest revision, as well as the bill as a whole, I'm afraid the CSA will cause uncertainties to our policy. Now, the CSA, vis-a-vis the nature of exemption of non-residential properties, I'm afraid you'll be sending out confusing messages, and then the demand management measures will be eroded in terms of its effectiveness. Moreover, a company may transfer its shares or trade its shares, and then the property interests of the company may be given to others, and as a result, the AVD can be sort of avoided. And again, we believe that this will erode the effectiveness of the policy. As we've mentioned, Mr. Leung referred to trade, business, profession. He is defining such terms, but then when it comes to the actual operation, it will be difficult to make a judgment. And we look at the permitted use rather than the actual use after acquiring a property for a few years under the existing IRO. Now we're talking about a short-term measure during exceptional times. If we are to introduce such an amendment, I'm afraid this is not proportionate to the mechanism we are introducing. Mr. Leung, sorry, Ms. Chen. Madam Chair, last time you asked us about the cases covering non-residential properties. Well, data from the IRD tells us that for the year 2013, there were at least 10,000 non-residential property transactions. So if once every 3 years they come forward to the IRD to ask for a refund, so every time we have to check whether the conditions are met, and there will be a financial implication and administrative implication, and there will be an administrative burden. Mr. Leung, I would like to respond to each of the 4 points. I don't think it is a departure from the policy intention. You want to deal with the speculation of residential and non-residential properties. Here we are talking about a property acquired by a trade or business for its own trade or business. If you don't agree with me, I'm afraid I haven't got much to say. I think it's a matter of different interpretation of the policy objectives. Now, as to the fluctuations in the market, Well, we're talking about a refund at least in 3 years' time. Now, if you talk about sending messages to the market, now the government's message is that we want to do a blow to speculation rather than affecting the business of the small, medium, and large enterprises. I think the message is clear, and I think it will have a guiding effect for the market. I cannot see how a wrong message will be sent. We aren't talking about unfreezing untying it, because we have to wait for at least 3 years. And of course, when you try to define what is a non-residential property, well, if a commercial property is for self-use, I would have suggested that the AVD should be exempted. Now, you say that companies may try to resort to tax avoidance measures or tax evasion measures. I've talked to you a number of times. I think you would like to collect the revenue before refunding. I think the simplest way to go about it is to dispense with the collection in the first place. You said that there were 10,000 cases. How many of them would meet the requirements, so that in the case of self-use, and then the trade and business would not cover subletting or investment? They have to use it for 3 years before applying for a refund. So it's not a matter of being automatic or you taking the initiative. Rather, they have to get all the documents ready and put in a statutory declaration before they can apply for a refund. You say that it is an exceptional measure during exceptional times, but then in 6 to 12 months' time, maybe the policy will be scrapped. So I don't think you need to worry about the inadequacy of resources, including manpower. If you need resources, understand that the RRD can always get manpower from us. We'll deal with it favorably for the RRD to take on new services. Any response from the administration? Other members? Mr. Sheck?
I think Mr. Kenneth Leung's request is really very modest. I would propose a compromise. The administration said that what I said was wrong, and you stick to the same explanation, and you do not accept Mr. Kenneth Leung's proposed amendment. That is very difficult to understand. Even you say that he would still need to pay the tax and get a rebate 3 months later. And you explain that this is not compatible with the legislative intent. But when you pass the buyer's stamp duty ordinance last time, when you allow them, the developers, 3 years after they've obtained the OP, and then you give them a refund. So on the one hand, you have this arrangement for some parties, but here we're talking about investors. Mr. Leung is not saying that we should encourage speculators. For investors, 4.25 times 3 years, more than 10%. So the amount could be quite substantial. So for those who are doing business, if the amount, I think the cumulative amount they have to pay during those 3 years could be quite substantial. So I therefore support Mr. Leung. All right. So any members would like to speak, still comment on the CSAs? If not, we'll wrap up our discussion on the CSAs. Mr. To. I don't know. Well, I support Mr. Leung. I don't know whether Mr. Leung would like to turn this into the committee CSA, or would you like to, continue, to move his own CSA? I think Mr. Leung. Mr. Leung, I have a question for you, and that is regarding the content of your CSA. That is nature of business, including all speculative activities and projects. I think you are here following what is in the Inland Revenue Ordinance. If you include all the speculative activities, if the nature of the business of the company is speculation or the collection of rent, then according to your CSA, they should also be exempted. Would they be entitled to a rebate? I think collection of rent would not be subject to exemption. You cannot buy a property and collect rent and regard that as a business. We've come across many companies whose major business includes the collection of rent. No. I want these companies to have some businesses and not just non-tangible business going. So they would need to have operate shop premises to operate restaurants or for trading activities. If the premises were left vacant, then I don't think the owner will enjoy the exemption. The government can come up with a guideline. Let's say if you bought the commercial property, will allow you 4 months for decoration, and you need to commence operation. And you need to commence operation for 3 years before you'll be entitled to the exemption. Given such a high threshold, people can invoke this provision to avoid tax would be very, very remote. I believe this would give rise to some controversy because it still includes some speculative activities. Although the intention of your CSA, Mr. Leung, is that all people hold properties to collect rent or leaving the premises vacant should not be entitled to exemption. Okay? All right, if there are no further questions, Mr. James To. I would like to, seek further clarification from Mr. Leung. That is, if the premises could not be let or sublet to another person or to another entity, but what happens if he leaves the property vacant? Would he be entitled to the rebate, Mr. Leung? Let me clarify further. If you leave the property vacant, it would mean that you purchased the property because you want to benefit from the property appreciation. Leaving the premises vacant is not a business or a trade because nothing is going on in the premises. So I think for the government or the IRD, according to the interpretations and guidelines, this is already clearly provided for in the guidelines. The whole purpose of my CSA is to stimulate those people who want to engage in business or using shop premises in Hong Kong to do business. At the Bills Committee, I would like to put on record that the purpose of my CSA is to ensure that we have, entities doing actual businesses in Hong Kong. I think one needs to be objective. We shouldn't talk about the objective or your intention. If a company has bought the property and if it could leave the premises vacant for 3 years and enjoys a tax rebate, then I'm sure there will be, objections from the community. Now, there could be a scenario where he will furnish, I don't know whether it's possible to take 3 years to furnish the premises. If that's the case, so I have a difficulty here. But if the purpose is that he will leave the premises vacant, he doesn't even use it. He would simply treat the premises as a trading stock. And if we still allow a tax rebate, the people in the community may challenge that. So if it is a property that is left vacant, I don't know whether Mr. Leung will consider refining his CSA further, because this could otherwise the government will say that if you leave the property vacant, you are suspected of speculating. because it's not you're not using the property for your own business, for the operation of your business. Of course, for some businesses, people buy property as an investment. So when they buy the property, they don't need to lease it. Of course, the owner would need to hold on to the property for a few years. Looking at it from a different perspective, if the property had been left vacant for a few years, he could actually have leased it out and enjoy the rental income equivalent to 2% per annum. So there's 6%, in 3 years, and I don't think they would mind paying the stamp duty, which is only 4-point-something%. So I don't think there will be a serious problem of abuse. So if Mr. Leung could further, refine his CSA, it would be much better. Of course, I understand it is not an easy task moving a CSA. I'm just making this suggestion for Mr. Leung's consideration. Madam Chair, I've heard Mr. To's suggestion. I've actually considered Mr. To's point already. Perhaps I'll take another look at my CSA to see where I could make some further adjustments in order that we can plug the loophole. Actually, I want the IRD to come up with an interpretation or a guideline, but I think it would be best to spell it out clearly in the provision itself. Madam Chair, could you tell us what is the CSA for our moving the CSAs? I think last time we already agreed that we would, according to the timetable, the deadline for the submission of CSA will be the 28th of June, so we still have time. And we've discussed this topic many times already. If you have another amended CSA, I'm sure members can understand the rationale for your amendment. Thank you. Mr. Shep, when are we going to resume the second reading of the bill? Last time we already obtained some tentative views from members. My understanding is that members agreed that our target should be that we resume the second reading of the bill on the 9th of July. So let's all work together according to this timetable. All right, shall we have a discussion on this item? And next, the administration has submitted a latest submission from the Law Society, which has just been tabled for members. And there is also a letter from the Law Society. Oh, it's not yet distributed. So could the staff now distribute the documents for members? The Law Society is asking the administration about the technical amendments and would like to seek some clarification. Could the administration walk us through the paper? Madam Chair, regarding the Law Society's letter, which you received in the late afternoon on the 30th of May. And they would like us to submit their letter and our response to the Bills Committee together. Regarding the CSA concerning car parks, I think the situation is still evolving. When the Bills Committee discusses issue, we're still further modifying the wording in the bill. So we've actually written a response to the Law Society. The Law Society's inquiry is that if the transaction involves a residential property and more than one car park, and only one consideration is given for the whole transaction without separate consideration for the property and the car parks, and how would the IRD deal with that? And that the exemption should only be given in respect of one car park. And we have actually replied to the Law Society as saying that according to existing arrangement, in a transaction, if there is only a single consideration, the IRD will require the applicant to list out the respective considerations. If the applicant does not list out the respective considerations, the usual practice of the IRD is to, seek further advice from the Rating Evaluation Department regarding the situation for the property and the car parks. The Law Society also asked why is it that a transaction involving the purchase of more than one car park will not be entitled to exemption. And we're saying that the car park itself is not for residential purpose, but in view of the fact that people who buy property may also need to use a car park, and that's why we provided for this exemption. So here we have further stipulated our policy position. The Law Society also asked another scenario. Let's say if you're talking about a house which includes a car park, how do we make the assessment? Previously, when we discussed the question of car parks, the exemption for car park we are proposing now deals with the properties and the car park being treated as separate properties covered by different lease. If you have a house in which there are car parks which are either earmarked or not earmarked, well, if the property is entirely a residential property, then according to the stamp duty ordinance, we will define it as, residential. And finally, they also asked a question about 29DF. That is the definition of the specified amount. And this is a point raised by the legal advisor, and we have also made some technical amendments to the definition of specified amount, and the different scenarios are listed in the annex. We will provide these to the Law Society, and we'll also put it onto the website of the IRD so that one can clearly find out details about the adjustments relating to car parks. Yeah, to put it simply, during this period of time, if you have a single document involving a property plus more than one car park, then the transaction will not benefit from the exemption according to the old rate. Now, if in a document, if it said that the residential property comes together with a car park and the number of car parks, so if there's only one car park, then there will be exemption. And regarding the buy first and sell later for people to replace the property, for such people, if they buy a property together with a car park, and if the person himself doesn't own any property already or a car park, or if already disposed of his original property and car park, then the new property that he has purchased and the car park will still be eligible for exemption. Legal advice, any comment? All right, if members have no questions, then we will wrap up the discussion of this paper. And next we now have to deal with Mr. James To. I think we received a letter from you at the last meeting, and I don't think this was discussed at the last meeting. If you don't mind, I'll ask the legal advisor to give a report to members. Our legal advisor has sent out 2 letters to the administration seeking clarifications or making some comments. So I'll ask the legal advisor to tell us about those 2 letters and whether or not the government has already responded.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the CSAs mentioned by the administration today arose from the questions that I have put to them, so I don't think we need to repeat the contents of my letters. This is because the questions raised have mostly been dealt with. For the remaining questions, I don't think we need to follow them up anymore. All right. Please put it on record. The legal advisor has been very helpful and he has been very meticulous. He has pointed out certain drafting and technical suggestions. We spent time to incorporate these suggestions, and they've been reflected in the CSAs that we studied today. All right, other members, any other suggestions or requests? As Mr. Sheikh has asked about the timetable of the Bills Committee, I have asked for your views. I think you all agreed to resume the second reading on the 9th of July, which will be the last meeting of this session. If we would like to resume the second reading debate on the 9th of July, then we need to make sure that our letter to the chair of the House Committee would reach him on the 17th of June. And then the 23rd of June will be the deadline for administration to give notice to resume the second reading debate. Time limit to give notice to move CSAs will be the 28th of June. Are we able to advance it? An earlier meeting will be the 2nd of July. I very much want to resume the second reading debate on that day, but of course I'm interested to find out about the workload on the Secretariat. Mr. Chair, of course, depending on the workload, but the earlier the better. This is because we've already studied the matter for a long time. I think probably the public would prefer to see an earlier wrapping up. They have a lot to work on. It doesn't matter whether it will be a week earlier or later. I understand that it will be very difficult for the clerk, and we also need to have the documents being translated as well. Mr. To, to me, I have the following to say. If the four motions are to be taken up by you, then of course it will be easier for me, but of course the burden will go to the legal advisor. But then in the case that my motions will not be acceptable to you, then I need time to deal with 7 or 8 in total. Now we are talking about CSAs. It is not a light matter because it will become law. And we haven't got the same sort of resources as the government, which has got hundreds of lawyers, and it will be safer if you give me more time. DS, we do respect the Secretariat, but then as individual members have said, we have already deliberated the bill for a long time. And the Law Society has also suggested that we should wrap it up earlier. I understand that on the 9th of July there are many other bills to be handled as well. It will be good if we can do it earlier. Mr. To, it doesn't matter. We'll try to finish the work in a reasonable limit of time. Maybe you have to consider how much time will be needed by the legal advisor and how much time will be needed by other members. I'm not insisting that we must have it on the last meeting, but then we have to spend time to discuss the product. James, I think everybody would recall that last time there was a lack of quorum and that we were not able to put it to the vote. Now, I think we are faced with the same problem. In fact, I have to go to the meeting concerning Timothy Tong. Now, we are having 3 or 4 meetings at the same time. Why don't we have a quorum call, ask members to come back? I don't mind whether the motions that I'm proposing will be carried or not. It doesn't matter. I think it's better to have them being voted on. Otherwise, there will be uncertainties, and the legal advisor doesn't know whether he will have to do it or not. If a member doesn't call for a quorum count, then I don't intend to do it. But then, of course, if there is a request, then certainly we have to consider the matter. Mr. To, are you making a request? Yes. Please ring the bell. Our clerk, please.
testing 係，
因為咧。
Even if the work is to be done by the legal advisor, we must have a meeting, albeit a short one. Otherwise, it will be risky to leave it in that form. If the administration has got any views, or if the administration has got any objection on technical grounds, we may have to study the matter again. Well, there are different ways to handle the matter. I think the content of your proposals has been thoroughly discussed, and I think not all members who moved CSAs for the 2012 bill were members of the Bills Committee. So I note your request. Let's have a look of the text, and then if necessary, we can find a way to deal with it. Mr. Chair, well, why don't we have a chat? Now, Mr. To would like to ask the legal advisor, the Secretariat, to take it over. They are running short of manpower. They may have more resources than Mr. To, but then Mr. To should better do it himself. It's much better than adding to the workload of the legal advisor, particularly when they are running short of manpower. Mr. To, it's up to members to vote for or against my motions. I hope members won't make a decision purely on the basis that it would be too much in terms of workload for the Secretariat and the legal advisor, and abandon it as a motion from the Bills Committee. No. For our own CSAs, we do it on our own unless there is a major ground. We had rounds of discussion. I didn't move them lightly. I have found that many members are in support of my ideas, and that's why I would like to see if the Bills Committee would like to take it over. Now, when we have got more than 100 properties to be acquired from Taikoo Shing, if this is still being allowed, well, I think many members shared my view. I'm not trying to impose my minority's view on the Bills Committee. It would be a waste of time, because had that been the case, it would certainly not be supported.
其實咧已經夠人數啦，咁我哋其實可以停嘅。不過
We have already formed a quorum, so I think we can vote on it. We have finished with the others. Of course, we have to put it on to the vote. It isn't a matter of whether we can have adequate votes or not. I think when we are ready, we should vote on it. If it is not carried, I do it. If not, then Ju will do it. I've been reminded that the bell must be rung for 5 minutes. All right. Let's say this once again. On the 26th of May, Mr. James To wrote to the Bills Committee in relation to the wording of 4 CSAs or 4 motions. The first one is about only one residential property in one document may be exempted from the doubled AVD. The second one is about the exemption for the transfer of non-residential properties for close relatives. And then the third one about TPS being exempted. The fourth one is the expansion of the definition about closely related persons. Anything to say? No. We can just vote on the matter. So let's vote on the first one. I think you have already got it. You don't need to have it put on the screen, right? Let me read it out to you. On the 27th of May, Mr. To moved the following motion. This committee will move the CSA as follows, so that for a document involving more than one residential property which is chargeable under the stamp duty, only one of the residential properties may be exempted from the doubled AVD. Those who are in favor, hands up please. 3. Those who are against. 3. So in accordance with any abstention, Mr. Chair abstains. So the motion hasn't been carried. All right, I come to the second one, and that's in relation to the exemption concerning the transfer of non-residential properties among closely related persons. That is Appendix 2. This committee moves a CSA so that there will be exemption from doubled AVD in relation to the transfer between closely related persons concerning non-residential buildings. Those who are in favor, 3. Those who are against, 3. Abstention, 1. Appendix 3. This committee, in relation to Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013, we move a CSA so that the relevant proper rental housing tenants, as long as he is acting on his own behalf and he isn't a beneficial owner of any other residential properties in Hong Kong, any document for the purpose of buying a rental housing estate unit from the Hong Kong Housing Authority under the TPS will be exempted from doubled AVD. Those who are in favor, 3. Those who are against, 3. 1 abstention. Thank you. Appendix 4. The last motion, this committee, in relation to Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013, we move a CSA so that the definition for closely related persons will be expanded so as to cover spouses of married children and also the parents of the spouses. Those who are in favor, 2. Those who are against. Those who are in favor, 3. Those who are against. Those who are against. Sorry, let me put the question to you again. There were 3 who were in favor, and those who are against, 0, none of you. Let me put the question to you again. Those who are in opposition, 3, abstention, 1. So in accordance with the voting results, all the 4 motions have not been carried. Mr. To, my understanding is that, of course, they have got different reasons for objecting. My party hasn't made a final decision. It doesn't mean that we have already decided on the voting inclinations during the resumption of the second reading debate of the CSA stage.
Mr. Shek already said that some members may not object to your proposal, except that he doesn't think it's appropriate for the Bills Committee to move the CSA. Never mind. I think the DAB so far is not supporting, is not giving the support that this should be the Bills Committee CSA, and I find this rather odd. Well, in that case, Mr. To, would you require more time? I will need about 2 weeks. So in that case, we will still stick to the target of the 9th of July. If I receive any requests from members for a meeting, then I will consult the members and before and then to decide whether we need to convene another meeting. So at this stage, I'd like to thank all the members for the support in the inclusion of this bill. Hopefully, we hope that we will be able to resume the second reading of the bill on the 9th of July. Thank you.